The content of this podcast reflects the host's views and does not constitute medical advice. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, Long COVID MD. I'm your host, Dr. Zeest Khan. I am a licensed, board-certified physician, but for the last few years, I've been focusing on my health and recovery from the symptoms of long COVID. This podcast, I share my medical expertise and how I've applied that to my recovery, as well as sharing the ups and downs of this journey. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about updates in my health and how I recover from setbacks. I had promised an episode on complementary medicine fields in the last episode, and I still plan to record an episode like that, but there's been a change in the schedule because I fell sick. And it's really thrown me off, and it's taken several weeks to come out onto the other side. I'm still recovering, so I wanted to take a little time to talk about what's happened with my health and what I've done when I get a setback like this. I'm also going to talk about feelings. Today's going to be a feelings episode because when I get sick the way I did this month, it brings up a lot of emotions. We spend a lot of time when we're tethered to our beds doing nothing but thinking, and those thoughts can really lead us down some interesting paths. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those paths were for me. First, updates. I fell sick several weeks ago. I got strep throat, and it looks like a viral upper respiratory infection. I had really significant throat pain, and it felt like something was really wrong. I went to the doctor, got swabbed, and swabbed for strep. Strep pharyngitis is a bacterial infection that, if left untreated, can cause significant heart damage. So I don't get strep throat very often, but when I do, or when my children do, I do make sure to treat with antibiotics. It became pretty clear once I started my antibiotic treatment that more was going on than just the strep throat. My symptoms were more than a sore throat. I had nasal congestion, fevers, and progressively deep cough. I was swabbed for RSV, the flu, and COVID, and those came out negative, but the clinical presentation was pretty clear that I had an upper respiratory infection likely caused by a virus, in addition to strep pharyngitis, which is a bacterial infection. My school-age son also got strep throat, which is probably how I got it. And what's funny is I got strep throat exactly a year ago and felt absolutely miserable. And before that, I don't know when the last time was I got strep throat. I was a kid. I don't know details of immune compromise after COVID infection or with those of us with long COVID or virally mediated diseases. But all I know is I wasn't prone to these kinds of things before. My symptoms were pretty severe from the strep throat, and I'll just call it a cold. I was knocked out. And in the past, when I would get sick like this, it would put me out for a day, maybe two, and I'd be uncomfortable, but I'd be back on my feet. This time, that wasn't the case. I was in bed for many, many, many days. It was hard. Did my best to treat or approach treatment of my acute infection. Acute means new, something that hasn't been around for very long. So long COVID is my chronic disease. This cold and this strep was my acute infection. So I did everything I could to take care of my acute infection, which is rest, hydration, and medications, and eating nutritiously as best I could. And it's very hard to do that for several reasons for many of us. It's hard to eat nutritiously because, one, we have changes in our appetite. We may have changes in our taste. We may have gastrointestinal issues like nausea or vomiting. And if we don't have adequate help, we may be too fatigued to prepare food. So that's also limiting. I'm very lucky that I have access to help. I have a great support system. And so between my really supportive doctors and my very supportive family, I did focused completely on recovery. It still is taking longer to recover from this acute infection than I would like. It's actually very surprising to me. In addition to that, I have heard that people with virally mediated diseases can have a trigger of their chronic symptoms or worsening of their chronic symptoms after they get a new viral infection. And it seems to be that that's happened to me. That's also been concerning. I have made significant improvement in my long COVID symptoms, where they were once absolutely debilitating. They are now more manageable. And even though I don't have a lot of mobility, meaning I can't really travel outside of my home very much, and I have to keep very close track of my energy levels, I am much more comfortable in my body than I was in 2021. But after this acute infection, many of those very familiar symptoms returned. My POTS symptoms have markedly gotten worse, and my resting heart rate is much higher now than it was recently. I have orthostatic intolerance again. So POTS, for those of you who may not be aware, stands for Positional Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome, POTS. It is a condition that is related to the umbrella term of dysautonomia, in which your autonomic nervous system, the two parts of which are parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, don't fire or collaborate appropriately. And so when in a normally functioning body, these nervous systems help constrict and relax your blood vessels so that you can get adequate blood flow no matter what position of your body you're in. Those methods fail or don't work appropriately when you have POTS. So if you lean over and stand up, a lot of us, even if you're really healthy, if you lean over and stand up really quick, you can be a little bit dizzy or lightheaded. For those of us with POTS, we can actually collapse from lack of adequate blood pressure or have severe dizziness from an extremely elevated heart rate. So my POTS symptoms have markedly gotten worse. My asthma is worse than it's been in years. My brain fog is more pronounced, or my cognitive impairment is more pronounced. And my fatigue, gosh, how could I forget? The fatigue is, it's remarkable. I don't know what to say. I know I'm not the first one to say that we need a more adequate word to describe what this type of fatigue is like. I feel like a deflated balloon. You know, I have kids, you might too, or if you've ever had a party, you inflate a bright new balloon. It's taut, it's strong, it holds its shape. It has that ting when you hit it. And if it's been sitting around for a few days, the skin becomes wrinkled and malleable. The color has dulled. It doesn't move through the air as well. It's puckered. It looks sad. And that's the image that comes to mind. I don't know how you think about it, but that's how I feel, like a deflated balloon. Like I don't have any energy to do simple things. So I was at a place where I was able to walk around the block nearly every day. And now I'm back to having difficulty walking to the front door, having real difficulty walking up the stairs. I am paying really close attention to the number of times I need to go up and down. I'm calling on my family to help me, bring things. And I'm limiting my movement because it feels like at a molecular level, don't have the energy to move as much. So even though I'm not necessarily surprised that I'm having, what should we call it, a relapse or a flare or a trigger, I'm not surprised that I'm having a worsening in my symptoms, but it still is very disappointing. And I can't help but feel discouraged. I am not a psychologist, but I do know that new trauma reminds us of past trauma. And this feeling of vulnerability that I've had with this new illness, with this acute illness and the flare in my symptoms, is familiar, and I don't like it. When I'm in bed feeling unwell, I do my best to keep a positive mindset. I'm privileged to have perspective on a disease like this. Let me explain that. I've taken care of many, many very sick patients and very sick people. I've been part of the lives of families who have dealt with unchangeable tragedies. And I don't minimize my own suffering by admitting that many other people suffer. It might not work for you, but it has helped me tremendously to know that my suffering is not in a silo. It is actually an experience shared by the bulk of humanity. And at least for me, I feel like I would be doing almost like dishonoring the memories of my patients who have been through unspeakable tragedies if I wallowed in my own self-pity too much. And that's my perspective. I, at the same time, recognize that I'm not going to navigate this hardship that I'm experiencing without admitting and processing the grief and sadness that I am experiencing. Both of these and all of these can be true simultaneously. So I can have perspective on my personal tragedy, and I can also grieve for my suffering. Toxic positivity is not helpful. I am talking about true emotional health, maturity, and resilience. True emotional maturity allows us to admit our feelings, gives us the courage to hold those feelings in our hands, sometimes outside of us, to observe them, to process them, and come to terms with them. Having a positive mindset or perspective is the result of a lot of interior hard work, a lot of emotional labor. And I'm very proud that I've been on this, doing this for quite some time. It's always been important to me to be emotionally resilient, to be able to keep working in the field that I was in. I'm a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. I take care of exceptionally sick patients. I take care of trauma victims. I take care of people who are making very, very difficult decisions and need a team to act very quickly on their behalf. So I consider my job being a steward for others, and it is very sacred to me. And the only way that I can show up for my patients day in, day out, year after year has been by processing all of the things that I have seen and felt as a doctor. I'm applying that to my own recovery, and I think about it a lot during times like this when I feel physically so unwell. And when I feel physically unwell, it's like my skin is tender, my emotions are tender, and you might feel that same way. So, what was I thinking about in addition to this when I was lying in bed all those days, feeling so terribly? I wasn't really able to read or, scroll online. All I really did was close my eyes, and sometimes it was hard to sleep. So what do? You think. I thought about my future. I thought about my children's future. I worried that I would become, or that I will become, a burden on them. I wish they had a mother who was more active for them. I worry about my life expectancy. I worry about money. And that's a lot. Those are heavy things. I read an article recently that was posted on Dysautonomia International. It was shared by a friend who had found it, and she said it was very validating for her, and it was for me too, because it proposed that, it was an opinion piece that proposed that instead of thinking of long COVID as a disease that has a cure right now, we may want to be thinking about it as a category of diseases called relapsing remitting, which means that instead of having a full recovery or going into remission, the way we think of cancer patients, we have a disease that whose symptoms are going to subside at times and get worse at other times. And sometimes those worsened times is triggered by things like a new infection. So I've been thinking about this as I've been lying in bed too, that is this the way my life is always going to be? I felt lulled in a certain way at many times this year. I had several periods where I was feeling really good, and then it doesn't last. You are just waiting for the shoe to drop because this, it's not going to be forever. Or at least, I'm pretty practical about that. Like, I don't think whenever I've been feeling really well, I haven't convinced myself that, okay, now I'm cured. I don't even think I am hanging my hat on being cured. I just want to be functional for as long as I can be. And I want to be able to improve my function steadily and then have methods that I can rely on to consistently get better when I do have these relapses, we'll say. Generally speaking, I feel okay with this paradigm of disease, understanding long COVID. But when I was feeling so unwell in bed, that the idea that this is always going to be with me was so sad. I'm taking a beat here because I'm trying to remember if I felt or feel hopeless. And I don't think I do. And even if this is a condition that's going to be with me for the rest of my life, even at my lowest point recently, I don't think I felt hopeless. I did feel sad, and I certainly feel guilty that my kids don't have more of a mom. I want to take them around the world. I want to play with them. And sometimes I have to kick them out of my room because it's too much to be around them. And I can hear it myself as I tell this story, and I'm sure you can hear it too, that these are these are feelings, but it's not reality. I know that I am a responsible mom and that I am a mother who loves her children, and more importantly, my children know that I love them. I am a mom who supports my children emotionally and keeps them physically safe. And I think that's, priorities number 1 through whatever. Those are the most important things. And I know I'm meeting those, but it still feels terrible when you can't do the things that you wish you could for those you love the most. And the last thing I'll touch on, which I mentioned earlier, is this idea of, and then we'll move on to more lighthearted stuff, I guess, or practical things. I was thinking about my life expectancy for the first time in a really long time. I really try to stay away from, small research studies or, the random person on Twitter's ideas of what this disease is going to do to us in the future, because none of us know. We don't have a crystal ball. And I'm not going to trust someone on Twitter who doesn't have any scientific background or much less a degree or experience in virology to tell me, what's threatening me in the future. I also think it's really bad for my mental health to be constantly around fear-driven news, which is, fear-driven news is effective for headlines and clickbait and for manipulating people. We have to be really cognizant of that as people who are vulnerable, that scare tactics are a way to sell us on something, okay? And even less malignantly, some people might just be verbalizing what they're afraid of. And fear can be contagious, so please protect yourself. That being said, I've been really scared about my life expectancy. And, I would love to live a long, healthy life. I don't know what's around the corner or what sequelae are going to pop up. It's so strange. I mean, have you ever thought of that, the Magic School Bus? That's what it's called. The Magic School Bus is about a science teacher with red hair who had a magic school bus and would take her students to every corner of the galaxy to explain different things, theories about science. And one of the most popular ones that most of us remember is the episode where Miss Frizzle shrinks everybody and they go through the human body. They see blood cells and organs and everything else. And I was thinking about that as I was lying in bed, wondering what is happening inside me. What does my DNA look like? There's so much movement inside my cells that I'm not aware of or in tune with. What is going on there? How do I know that I'm doing what I should be doing or doing what's best? The fact of the matter is, I have some idea of what I should be doing or how to treat my body well, but I am ignorant in a lot of things. I can be afraid of dying at an early age, but then I once again, I think about my experience as a doctor and it humbles me. The idea that we have a great deal of control over our fate is likely a fallacy. I will not get too philosophical here, but what I have seen is surprises. I've seen lives struck by a lot of surprises. Whether a person is battling a chronic disease or whether they are completely healthy, whether they are wealthy or not. Although we do know that, money comes with a lot more privilege and a lot more security than being impoverished. But bad things happen to lots of people, very cliche, but a good thing to remember because this thought process of what if I die leads me down a path that starts questioning all of my life choices and starts convincing me that maybe if I made different choices or specific choices, that I would live better, longer, stronger, happier. And I don't think that that's a sales pitch that has a real product behind it. What I do to, and what I did to get back to a grounded, psychic state, I guess, how I pulled myself out of that rabbit hole was remembering my patients, like honoring my patients who were all, by and large, good people. I know that I did the best I could for all of them. And even though the medical field gets a really bad reputation, I do know in my heart that most medical providers just want to help. And I know that because I've seen it, and I've worked with so many wonderful people who work, sacrifice their own bodies and strain their own bodies to do what's best for someone they don't even know. And I'm glad that even if I don't practice medicine like that, in that way again, that I think I did a lot of good for people. I also then remember that there are people in my life who are doing really good for me. So I want to talk about that. Over the last few years, ever since I fell ill, there have been methods that I have worked on to improve my health, to support my recovery. Some of those have been medications and tests and doctor's appointments, but a lot of it is the structure of my life. What I mean by that is it's important for me to have certain prescriptions, but I need to make sure that those prescriptions get to me. It's important for me to eat well, so I needed to build the structures in my life, the systems. I had to put systems in place so that I could more often than not eat well. I need to have positive people around me, a low stress environment. And I had to build systems to ensure that I had positive people around me for the most part. I've said that this has been, my recovery is now my full-time job. And the bulk of the labor has been identifying what needs to be done and building the systems in my life to ensure that I do those things. So I relied on these systems when I got sick. And I think because I have these systems in place, I'm bouncing back more quickly now than I did before. Also, there's been a lot of time and a lot of treatment between 2021 and now. So, of course, my body is a little bit different. But I have systems in place that don't take me a lot of effort to implement. First, my medical support and my medical professionals in my life. I developed a relationship with medical professionals who now know me and know my baseline, can tell when I'm feeling ill or well, and also have some insight into the things that have helped me or hindered me in the past. So I used those. 2, my community. My immediate community is my husband and my children. I spent a lot of time over the past few years, working on my relationship with my husband. He is amazing and open-minded and hardworking and committed. And so together we've been able to lean on each other and still have fun when I'm feeling well. our relationship is not just about me being sick. And we've put a lot of effort into that. And I'm hoping that that has offset potential burnout in his world from being a caregiver. The flip side of that is that because we're close, like he knows things that I typically use to help me feel better, like medications or people to ask. And when my brain's not working right, he not only can, bring me medications, but he can help brainstorm. So that's an amazing asset to have. He and I together have invested a lot of time on our emotional well-being and maturity, and discussed at length how to approach my discussion about my illness with my children, who were quite young when I first fell ill. I think it's an extension of how I perceive my health. I try to keep perspective so that when I'm feeling good, I act on that. Like my kids know when I'm feeling well and can hang out with them or do sort of quote unquote extra stuff. They also know that when I'm not feeling well, we have a language set up of like, I don't have energy for that right now. Because we've use this phrase so often, like right now, it reminds us that this is temporary. My symptoms fluctuate. So it's not time. I'm not available right now. And then the underlying knowledge is that I will be later. This is not finite. I'm not devastatingly ill. Something tragic is not happening right now. And I am hoping, if you're a psychologist out there, a child psychologist, I hope, please let me know if you think this makes sense. I think it offsets the stress that they have about my disease. They have luckily, built patience because of this. They do things on their own when they need to. They don't seem disheartened or discouraged if I sort of shoo them away kindly. They come back and they're like, okay, how about now? And so we've struck a really good balance, and I feel very proud of this little family unit that we have and this system of communication that we have. So I feel really lucky. The other part of our community outside our immediate household is our group of friends, our social network. And I'm so fortunate to have a group of friends who live close to one another, who are invested in the well-being of all of our children. A lot of my friends are the parents of my children's school classmates. My husband and neither one of us, my husband nor I, are naturally extroverted people. And so it took us sort of moving outside of our comfort zone to get to know and make friends as adults. All of you probably experience that too. The older you get, it's harder to make friends. But we put the effort in, and luckily we teased out a group of people who have similar set of interests and values. And we're all, really invested in the well-being of one another's children. I bring this up because when I got sick in the past, my husband took on a large set of responsibilities, and that's exhausting. Now, not only have we, because we've set up systems in the house to make tasks of daily living a little more automated and a little smoother, we also have a social network of responsible, caring people who are willing to help one another. These relationships are mutually beneficial, and my husband and I have both gotten used to asking for help when we need it. I bring this up during a discussion of my health because life still has to go on. And when one parent is literally debilitated, the other parent still has a full-time job, it can be really easy for your household to fall apart. Our household didn't fall apart this time, both because my husband's a superstar, but also because I was able to outsource a lot of things to my friends. School activities, after school activities, they were not thrown off balance detrimentally because I was very sick. And that has happened in the past, and it could very well happen if we didn't depend as much as we do on our social family. This has taken a lot of time to find and vet a support team. You have probably experienced family members, work colleagues, friends or former friends who are just not good for you right now. You had a certain relationship in the past, whatever grievances or quirks that person had or you have, those incompatibilities might have been patched over in the past, but when you're in such a vulnerable situation, those incompatibilities, unless they are treated, are very, very evident and can lead to cracks in the relationship. I myself have invested a lot of time trying to salvage relationships that were very important to me and remain very important to me. And I've had to realize that those relationships are just different now, and they may be different for a very long time, that I have done everything that I can do in a healthy way to salvage these relationships. And you know what? This person is not capable or is just not going to be a support person for me. That's a lot of heavy lifting. That's a lot of emotional heavy lifting. And, as I was sick, I was mourning the loss and grieving the loss of some of those relationships and wondering maybe there's something else I can do when I know that I've done everything that I really can. And also, hopefully nothing's forever. And as my situation changes and maybe their points of view and experience change, we might be able to have a relationship that is more compatible in the future. Well, I hope that this was helpful to you or interesting in some way. Thank you for hanging out to the end of this. I always end up talking longer than I think I will, but I'm getting short of breath, and I was wondering why, and I'm realizing I've been talking for a long time. So I'm going to go lie down. I hope that you are doing very well today, and I would love for you to be part of my social community. What do you do when you have a setback? What are those thoughts that creep up when you're in bed and you're feeling raw? Who is your superhero? What do you think you need to help you right now? Let me know. My email address is longcovidmd@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is Dr._Zeist. But to be honest with you, I am wanting to get off of that platform because it's just not good for my mental health. So email me if you would, longcovidmd@gmail.com. I'm Dr. Zeist Khan, and you've been listening to Long COVID MD, the podcast. Until next time, bye for now.